everyone, it's Sharon here. I'm back with another video for Craft Stash. Today I'm using the Creative Stencils Chevron stencil. This is one of a range of 8 stencils and they're made from a hazy polyester film, which means that you can clean it easily. And as you can see, this is the perfect size for a C6 card. This is an A6 stencil. Now I've already pre-cut a piece of cards that will fit perfectly on the front of a C6 card, and I'm going to tape this down to a plastic mat. I'm using this is frog tape. You can use any sort of masking tape, or washi tape even would do the job. And I'm just going to tape each side down. You can't quite see it because I'm doing it off camera, but before I stick down each piece, I'm just putting it on my jumper first, just to take a bit of the stickiness off so it's not too sticky. I don't want it to tear the paper, although this particular one I'm using is for delicate surfaces, so it's pretty good, but I always do this just in case. I would advise taping down as well if you're going to use any sort of texture paste or paint through the stencil, because it is quite easy for it to move if you just hold it down. Now today I'm using these metallic gilding polishes from Creative Expressions, and I've got heather and powder blue. This is the heather, and as you can see I've got a metal spatula, and I'm just putting it on top of the stencil, the bottom half, and I'm just smoothing it down with my spatula. And now I'm going to move on to the blue at the top, and I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. And as you can see, I'm slightly overlapping the lilac colour. I don't want there to be a sort of harsh line between the two colours, so by going slightly over it with the blue, you won't see a sort of definite line. Now because I've gone over the lilac with that, the bit that's left on my spatula is a mixture of both, so I'm not going to scrape that back into my blue pot because I'll contaminate it and the colour will be it'll have a bit of purple in it. You do want to take the tape off immediately and get your stencil cleaned. You don't really want to let anything dry on your stencil because it just gives you an awful job trying to clean it off. So just carefully remove the stencil and pop it. If you don't want to wash it straight away, just pop it into some water. And as you can see, that's given a lovely shimmery finish. As that was drying, I noticed that I'd missed a little bit at the bottom. Now that could be the effect you're going for, which does actually look quite nice, but for this particular card I do want the background to be solid. So because this is now touch dry, I'm just lining up my stencil again and holding it in place while I just put a little bit through. After telling you not to use these without taping them down, I'm doing just that. I can get away with it for that little bit though, I think. Now I've got a butterfly die, and this is the Butterfly 2 die from Apple Blossom, and I'm die cutting the butterfly from white card, and then I'm going to put it on top of some coloured paper just so that it's got a nice coloured background. So I'm creating the coloured background with distress inks. I've got seedless preserves in the middle, and then I'm using picked raspberry on the edges so that the wings will be sort of pink, and then towards the centre it'll be a nice purpley colour. So I can just stick the butterfly onto that coloured card. I'm using Ranger Multi-Matte Medium, and I'm just putting tiny dots all over. And then I can fussy cut that out. This is the tricky sort of fiddly bit. It's not too bad really, but the key to doing this really is to kind of undercut so that your scissors are slightly underneath the die cut. That way you won't see any of the coloured card around the edges. And for the fiddly bits like the antenna, you can completely go underneath because you don't need to cut the card behind for those bits. You just want the card to show in the gaps in the die. This is a really effective technique. I use this a lot. I think it gives so much use for your dies. It looks really good if you use black card for the die cut as well, and then put colour behind. And of course for the card behind you can use glitter paints, you can use metallic paints, and it really is an effective technique. So I'm just undercutting, as you can see, and that's my butterfly ready. And I think the bright pink looks lovely against that pastel shimmery background. So now I'm going to add a greeting, and I've got some black card and I've got the Apple Blossom Floral Wishes stamp set, and I'm going to stamp, there's a greeting that says hello beautiful, and I'm stamping this in Versamark ink, and then I'm going to heat emboss it. And the powder I'm using is Wow white embossing powder. It's super fine, this one. And I'll just heat that with my heat tool. You can't quite see, I'm slightly off camera, but I'm letting the heat gun get hot before I start with the embossing. And now I'm going to just trim that into a thin strip so that it'll go across the bottom of the card. Now, because I've got that gilding polish on the card front, I'm using this red line tape, which is a bit stronger than a normal double-sided tape. I just want to make sure this is well and truly stuck, and with that gilding polish, of course, it's not a totally flat surface that I'm sticking to. So I'm just going to pop that along the bottom, and then I can trim the edges. And now I'm ready to put my card together. I'm just using a normal double-sided tape to add this piece of card to the card front. Depending on what you use through your stencil, you might need to use a sort of watercolour card. I've just used a standard card for this because the gilding polish isn't sort of too wet, but I am going to be quite generous with the double-sided tape just to make sure this sticks. I'm just lining that up, and then I'm ready just for the final thing, to add the butterfly. I'm going to add the butterfly with some foam pads so that it's raised up from the card front, and then that's my card finished. Hopefully this gives you just one idea of the many things that you can do with these stencils. Don't forget there are another 7 designs as well in this range, and they're very affordably priced, so they're a great investment. As you can see, this one's got a lovely shimmer to it now it's finished. I'll put details in the description box on YouTube of all the products that I've used, and you can also find the products themselves at the Craft Stash website, which is www.craftstash.co.uk. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!